Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 25th of August, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So we have the official Mainnet merge announcement blog post that was posted around 24 hours ago. It actually was posted just after I recorded yesterday's refuel, but here it is, the official Mainnet kind of blog post on the Ethereum Foundation blog with all the relevant information you need to know about the Mainnet merge. So here is the kind of like last little bit of the roadmap to the merge. I mean, it's very, very close now, right? We've kind of done all those test nets. Now we're just waiting for TTD to hit on September 15th for the actual mainnet merge to hit. But we also have Bellatrix, which is happening on September 6th, which is the upgrade to the consensus layer in order to get it ready for the merge. And then we have Paris, which will hit with the TTD, between September 10th and 20th. I mean, we are targeting September 15th based on TTD, but as we know, it can change. And then, there's a note on timing there. There's the client releases, so links to all the clients, Lighthouse, Lodestar, Nimbus, Prism, Teku on the consensus layer side, and Besu, Aragon, Geth, and Nethermind on the execution layer side. We have 5 clients on the consensus layer side now, which is really cool. Lodestar just hit version 1.0 or production ready, I think the other day, just a few days ago, just in time for the mainnet merge. So if you want to run a minority client, which Lodestar definitely is, I think it is the least represented on the Beacon chain. Well, now you can with the kind of like official V1 release here. There's some upgrade specifications and an update to the merge bug bounty. So critical bugs are now worth up to 1 million USD until between now and the 8th of September. So this is a 4 times multiplier as to what they already are. And there's a bit of an FAQ here as well, which, I mean, all of you guys will know all of this stuff. What should you do as a node operator? Well, you should go check out the merge readiness checklist and kind of check out what to do there. And I mean, this has got information too. This is, I guess, like as a solo staker, as a staker, what do you need to do? What is the estimated date for the TTD? As an application or tooling developer, what should you do? So the FAQ is really good here. It gives answers to the most frequently asked questions, obviously. But yeah, guys, like it's the days are ticking down. I mean, I feel like at this point, saying the merge is coming is kind of redundant. We all know it is. I think there are still some people out there who don't think it is, which is so weird to me, so weird. Like that people still think there's a chance that it's not going to happen. There's a chance it's going to get delayed. It's funny. The only way it could actually get delayed right now, or at least the only way I could see it getting delayed, is if for some reason most of the miners drop off the network and TTD gets pushed out to like October. That would take, I believe, a huge amount of the network falling off for that to kind of happen, which doesn't make any sense considering that it's still extremely profitable to mine the Ethereum network. So I don't expect that to happen. I expect it to go pretty smoothly. I've seen no indication that it's going to happen. Hash rate has stayed pretty steady for quite a while now. We're obviously not getting any new miners coming online because there's no point, but it doesn't seem like we're getting any dropping off because at the end of the day, they're still making money. They're still able to inch out those profits, and that's the incentives working, which is really cool. But yeah, you can go check out this blog post. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. Just as I said, counting down the days to the merge here. So speaking of the merge, actually, Rocket Pool has released version 1.6.0 of the Smartnode stack. This one is ready for the merge and adds support for drawing on the Beacon Chain graffiti wall and more. So if you are running Rocket Pool and the Rocket Pool Smartnode stack, then you definitely want to be upgrading to this, which you can do by going to the GitHub here or just following the instructions as per normal. All right, so we got some, I guess, like an updated bit of news around Alexei Pertsev, who is the arrested Tornado Cash developer, and it's not good news, unfortunately. So a judge in Amsterdam has ruled that he must stay in jail for 90 days pending trial, which was ruled, I believe yesterday. So I think he will have spent at the end of the 90 days 120 days sitting in jail, and he still hasn't been formally charged, which is just so insane to me. I believe this is the way it works in the Netherlands, that they can hold you up to 120 days if you're denied bail without charging you. I believe that's the law. And yeah, obviously because the fact that he's still being held means that his bail was declined. If I had to kind of I mean, there wasn't a reason specified as to why his bail was declined, but if I had to give a reason, it was probably on national security grounds because of the fact that he's involved with Tornado Cash, which was sanctioned by the US government over the connections to North Korea. But that doesn't make this any less of an injustice. This is really, like, honestly, I really feel for Alexei here. I mean, you always see kind of things about people saying, free Ross Ulbricht, right? The guy who ran Silk Road. And that happened a long time ago now, like actually a very long time ago. I believe he was arrested in 2013. So, almost 10 years ago now. But this hits much closer to home for me personally because of the fact that it's, Tornado Cash, it's on Ethereum, and it is very, very recent. And I'm obviously much more involved in the ecosystem these days. And obviously we're all following this very closely. So the fact that this person is going to spend so much time in prison or so much time in jail without it being charged formally with anything just really breaks my heart. And I think that they're going to come up with something to charge him with, or they're going to let him go. I mean, there's only two ways it can go, right? Like, they have to charge him with something, or they're going to let him go. But if they want to charge him with something that doesn't make them look like they've got egg on their face, and like they arrested him for no reason, well, it's going to be, I think, quite difficult, because not only do they have to charge him with something, then they have to bring those charges to potentially court and prove that in a court of law to potentially a jury and a judge that this person did what they're charging him with. And if they lose that, it's even worse. So I think they're in a rock and a hard place. And by they, I mean the authorities that arrested him, because they do want to charge him with something, but they have to make sure the charges stick, right? Like, and if he hasn't actually done anything wrong, which I don't believe he has. Obviously, I don't know for sure, but I think they're alleging that he facilitated money laundering and profited from it. Well, proving that would be quite hard if all you've got to go on is the fact that he was a developer on Tornado Cash, because you can't say that just because he developed the code for Tornado Cash that he was aiding with money laundering, right? That'd be like charging someone who manufactures guns with aiding in murders, with aiding in murders because of the fact that the gun was used for a murder. You see where the logic is going here, right? So I think that I am going to be monitoring this closely. I hope that they don't charge him with anything and he just gets freed. That would still be shitty because he spent time in prison for basically nothing, and he would have like 120 days of his life robbed essentially. But I'm sure, I don't know how it works in the Netherlands, but in the US I believe that you can sue if that happens to you, and you can kind of like get compensation or something. But I'm not sure how it happens in the Netherlands. But still, the fact that he's been in jail at all and has been denied bail here without being formally charged with anything just seems like an injustice to me. So I hope that there are brighter days ahead for Alexei, but unfortunately in cases like this, it's kind of hard not to be hopeful because of the fact that when it comes to national security, as I've mentioned before, things get very murky, things get very, very serious, and I don't think governments want to look weak when it comes to national security, not just for their own citizens, but for their adversaries, abroad as well. But I'm going to keep an eye on this and keep you guys updated on everything happening here. All right, so Vitalik put out an interesting tweet today where he said, people continue to underrate how often cryptocurrency payments are superior, not even because of censorship resistance, but just because they're so much more convenient. Big boost to international business and charity, and sometimes even payments within countries. I think this is an important point amongst all the censorship noise that we've been, experiencing over the last few weeks. Because payments is obviously one of the most basic use cases, if not the most basic use case of crypto. Bitcoin is a payments network at the end of the day, right? Like, all you can really do with Bitcoin on the base layer is send and receive BTC. So when you think about it, this whole industry was born from being payments infrastructure. Now, of course, none of these Bitcoin doesn't scale to the world at layer one, neither does Ethereum. We need these other solutions, but throwing away all of that, it's like all of those kind of like issues, it's still very much better than the existing system. And I've explained this before, how using the example of if I was to send money overseas, it would not be anywhere near instant or even within like a minute or so, and I would have to go through a complicated process. There'd be more fees involved. I'd have to put up with currency risk and all that sorts of stuff. But when I want to send, say, a USD stablecoin to the other side of the world, I can do that on the Ethereum network, basically within a block if I pay the right fee, and then I can have a settlement guarantee that money got to where I sent it to, because I can actually look at the blockchain and see that. And even if it was done as a private transaction, I could still see that. So just because it's transparent normally doesn't mean it has to be. With proper privacy on Ethereum, you can still have a guarantee that the funds went where you wanted them to go. And you could even do this with Tornado Cash. If you sent funds to Tornado Cash and then sent them from the Tornado Cash address, the Tornado Cash contracts to the person's address, you could tell them, hey, like, here is the funds that I sent you, and this is where, and I sent them from Tornado Cash because I didn't want to link my address here. And that would be a perfectly valid use case and a perfectly valid a payment. So, and that's, I guess, like another example of why Tornado Cash isn't just for money laundering, isn't just for criminals. It's for everyday people wanting to protect their privacy. But I think Vitalik's right here. We definitely overlook how superior crypto payments are, but not just how superior they are, just the fact that they are the thing that has probably the best product market fit in crypto when you really think about it. So just a good little thing that I think Vitalik highlighting here amongst all the censorship noise, because yes, payments with censorship resistance is the ultimate goal. And yes, the ultimate goal of a blockchain should be to maintain credible neutrality and be as censorship resistant as possible. But even if it's not, even if there is some things being censored, the fact is that, like, you still have that payments infrastructure in place. You can still make payments to a lot of people, and you can still make them better than the existing system. Because, with the existing system, say, for example, you have your money in a bank. Like, yeah, it doesn't happen very often, but there are many instances of it happening where you have to have your money in a bank because you want to do digital payments, but your bank account can just freeze that money. So your bank can just freeze the money in your account, and you have recourse, but like, it's a very frustrating process. Whereas with cryptocurrency, you can self-custody your funds until you're ready to use them, until you're ready to send them to through payments or use them for whatever else. And by maintaining that self-custody, no one can take that away from you, unless, I guess, you lose your private key or your seed phrase or anything. But like, no central planner can freeze your account or anything like that. They can freeze specific assets. Obviously, holding USDC is an example of that, and USDT. But if you're just holding ETH in your own account as a hardware wallet or whatever, there is no risk of that, and you have the ability to send payments globally, with very strong settlement guarantees and security guarantees, and also censorship resistance too. Like, the thing is that, as I've explained before, even if 90% of the network is censoring you, or 95% of the network is censoring you, you'd still be able to get your transaction in. I believe if it's 90% post-merge, you'd still be able to get your transaction into a block within 20 blocks, which block times are 12 seconds, a few minutes. That's all it would take, even if the vast majority of the network was censoring you, because just the way it works, where the validators are rotated, and a new validator proposes a block through that rotation every single time. Just the way it works, like, from a distribution perspective and from a probabilistic perspective. So you'd still be able to get your transaction, even if 99% of the network was censoring you. Obviously, it would take longer then, but all it takes is 1%. It gets kind of like weird when you think about it, because it gets like exponentially longer. If every single validator on the network was censoring you except your own validator, then it would be quite hard. But the funny thing is that I believe, in theory, even if every single validator on the network was censoring you except your own one, you would just have to wait until your validator was up to propose a block, and then you would manually include your own transaction in that block. Now, this could take months, but it's still possible. I believe, from a technical perspective, it would still be possible to do that. And don't quote me on that, because I'm not 100% sure, but just thinking out loud here. But yeah, interesting tweet from Vitalik. Glad he put it out. All right, so I'm going to move on to the Coinbase news from the day. So Coinbase has announced support for Coinbase wrapped staked ETH, or cbETH, on the Ethereum network, which is basically their version of a liquid staking ETH token. Now, they have a whole white paper around this, which you can read. I believe if it's linked somewhere here. No, is it linked somewhere here? Learn how there was a white paper somewhere, and I've just kind of like lost the link to it now, unfortunately, or I'm blind and I can't find it. But There's a lot of good stuff to like about this, I think. I think it makes sense for Coinbase to be doing this so that people can like exit and enter their stake at will. Enter and exit staking at will. There's no need for them to wait through a queue. Obviously, when you sell your cbETH, you're not exiting, that ETH is not being exited from the beacon chain. At least not until withdrawals are enabled, but you still get that instant liquidity there, which I think is very cool. But if I want to find this white paper, here it is, because it's got a bunch of interesting nuggets of information in here I wanted to get through. So it's not that long; it's about 15 pages, but I mean it's big text and a bunch of graphics and things like that. So essentially, there is one thing I wanted to talk about. They talked about kind of like how they're calculating the rates. So I believe it's just going to be the conversion rate is the rate at which cbETH will be issued or redeemed, burned relative to the amount of staked ETH being wrapped. It is a function of the amount of ETH staked, any post-commission rewards earned, any penalties imposed, and total CB stake. So they actually show the way they're working this out on this white paper as well, how they're kind of paying out the rewards, which is really cool. And the market exchange rate, it basically works the same way as STETH. It's not pegged. It's just a free-floating market exchange rate, and it could be priced based on risk as well. And you can see here Coinbase's token wrapping operation. So basically cbETH is going to be completely centralized. It's got an admin and owner key, blacklister as well, so it can blacklist any address. So they're being very upfront about this, but this is to be expected. I mean, the cbETH contract apparently is inherited directly from USDC with 2 feature additions, which is an exchange rate and an oracle role. So essentially, like, it's the same thing. It's super centralized, which, I mean, you're staking with Coinbase. Of course, it's going to be super centralized. So you shouldn't expect any decentralization here. But I like that they're being upfront about it, right? I really like that they're being upfront about it. What I liked even more is that they have a risks page here where they say there is risk of slashing. So they're actually being upfront that, staking doesn't mean a free lunch. Like, there is a risk of being slashed for a number of different reasons. There is also smart contract security risk when you're holding cbETH because it is a smart contract that is powering it. You have blockchain technical risk, you have custodial risk, and you have price risk that is associated with the cbETH token. So I love that Coinbase is doing this because obviously there's been a lot of talk lately about, do users even know what they're getting into when they're staking? Well, if the risks are showed to them up front and center, even if they don't read them, it's their responsibility to know what they're getting into. I don't buy this argument that we should not, if you want to take the extreme example here, I don't buy the argument that we shouldn't socially slash one of these exchanges just because there's fallout for end users. At the end of the day, these end users should know what they're getting into. And I think that we shouldn't be training users to just not consider risks when they're interacting with things, because there's risk attached with everything. Now, obviously, there are different ways to train users on this and different ways to present the information to them. If you just present them with a wall of text, they're less likely to read it. So I'm wondering how Coinbase will do this on their website. I haven't actually checked it out myself, but there should be very, easy to read things for users that make all these risks apparent to them so that they know what they're getting into, because you're earning a reward at the end of the day. You're not just like putting ETH into this thing and earning nothing and risking it all for nothing. You're earning an ETH denominated reward. And yes, okay, you're paying Coinbase for a fee for staking on your behalf, but you are still getting a reward at the end of the day. And especially with cbETH token, you're able to enter and exit that position at will, which I think is obviously very, very positive. Now, the bit more comments around, I guess, what Coinbase is doing here. This is fitting in with my thesis that I've said it before, and I'll say it again. There's 2 ways that staking is going to become more distributed. One is they're going to have more competition with these kind of providers, and more competition in the liquid staking derivative space particularly. Because now we have cbETH, we have STETH, we have RETH, obviously from Rocket Pool, and a bunch of other ones that are all going to be competing with each other for market share, which I think is obviously very healthy. Then on the second point is when withdrawals are enabled, that we see that great reshuffling of stake, which I think is just as important as well. Because even if all the Coinbase stakers sold their cbETH right now, which they technically couldn't, but even if they did, that ETH would still be staked under Coinbase because Coinbase can't withdraw the ETH from the beacon chain right now. So when that loop can be closed, you're going to see a much more efficient beacon chain, a much more distributed beacon chain, and a much healthier one because of that. So I'm very much personally looking forward to that, but it's great to see Coinbase's cbETH token come out today. I think all of the exchange staking operations is going to have a token like this, especially with Coinbase leading the charge. If Coinbase can do it, the rest can do it. I expect, kETH from Kraken, or I think Binance may already have bETH, or they definitely do have bETH, but I don't know if it's a stake derivative token. I don't know if it's like a futures market or something like that, but you can expect all exchanges that offer staking to have one of these tokens because it just makes logical sense, especially if Coinbase is able to do it, then these other ones will be able to do it as well. All right, so Tether, I made an announcement today saying that they hold firm on decision not to freeze Tornado Cash addresses and awaits law enforcement instruction. This is a pretty big deal here. I think Tether is trying to take the opposite spectrum of the centralized stablecoin spectrum, or the opposite side of the stablecoin spectrum here, because of the fact that USDC has been very upfront about abiding by any law orders given to them. They will freeze any address that they have to. They will kind of freeze any funds that they have to. Whereas Tether is kind of taking the other side. Yes, Tether has used their blacklist function plenty of times before, and they have frozen things, but they don't seem to be going above and beyond here. So they're not actually freezing the Tornado Cash addresses, which I think is obviously distinctly different from USDC. And these USDT and USDC are the two of the biggest centralized stablecoins within crypto, obviously. But yeah, this is pretty cool. I think that this is cool because we have a soft guarantee that USDT is like I don't know, an insurance policy if USDC ever becomes too tainted and ever becomes like too, I guess, controlled and regulated by the US, and where it becomes very cumbersome to use it. So I'm glad that Tether put this out. Now, obviously, there are a lot of issues with Tether. There's a lot of drama surrounding Tether. I'm not going to go into that for now. I think that as long as the market believes that USDT is worth $1, it's going to be worth $1. It doesn't matter even if it's not backed. I mean, obviously, it does matter in the long run, but and obviously, we want it to be backed because we don't want another terror situation. But I think that from what I've seen, Tether isn't as dodgy as it used to be. But I'm not going to endorse it and say that you should use one stablecoin over another. But it's there as an option for people who'd rather use something that is potentially less restrictive than USDC on the centralized stablecoin front. All right, so Otterscan, I think I covered this a while ago, but Otterscan is basically an open source Ethereum block explorer created by William Mitsuda. So basically, I think this is live today. Yeah, I remember shouting this out on July 2nd, 2021. This was a while ago. I remember shouting this out on the refuel. But basically, I think you can install this locally using GitHub code. So it's on GitHub. You can install it locally, and I think that. This is a good alternative to Etherscan. Obviously, we all love Etherscan, and there are other block explorers out there. But at the end of the day, if you want to have your own block explorer that can talk to a node, talk to an archive node such as Aragon, which you can sync on your own PC, you go like even beyond fully self-sovereign with just a full node. You can have an archive node running. You can run your own local block explorer with Otterscan, and then you won't even have to rely on Etherscan. Like this is what's amazing about crypto or about Ethereum in particular. You can have your own wallet, no one controls. You can have your own RPC, which is your own full node. You can have your own archive node, and you can have your own block explorer, so that you don't have to actually interact with any third parties that could potentially censor you. You know, it may sound funny to say this, but Etherscan could censor an address. They could just not show that address in their search results, so you wouldn't be able to actually see anything about it. You would have to go to a different block explorer, and it is possible for them to do that because Etherscan is a centralized website. So I actually think it's quite amazing that we're getting to the point where you can have like full stack decentralization, and you can have it with different front ends as well, not just Otterscan. But you can have it with different DeFi front ends, download them, run them locally. Yes, it's more technically involved, but I mean, that's by design at the end of the day. Like if you want to try and do things on your own, of course, it's going to be more difficult than someone else doing them for you. But I think that's a very underrated aspect of Ethereum and blockchains more generally, or decentralized blockchains more generally. You do have the ability to be completely, fully self-reliant. You don't have to use third-party services if you don't want to, which I think is pretty amazing. So, yeah, I mean, if you're looking for, I guess, a self-sovereign block explorer, you can download Otterscan and run it locally using an Aragon node and basically get similar data to what you'll get from Etherscan. Maybe not all the bells and whistles and all the features, but you still get something similar, which I think is really cool. All right, so Spectral here has announced a $23 million Series A round, I believe here, led by a bunch of different investors here, as you can see. So this, I believe, comes a year after their seed round, I would say. And for those of you who don't know what Spectral is, they're a programmable credit worthiness protocol. So essentially what that means is they're trying to bring credit on chain so that we can actually have credit systems. Because right now within DeFi, we don't, there are some protocols like Maple Finance and Goldfinch that enable this, but most of DeFi doesn't allow you to actually have credit. It just lets you borrow funds, but you have to over-collateralize. Credit is a different concept where you're able to basically not have to over-collateralize with funds. You can over-collateralize, so to speak, with your reputation, with your identity. So that's what Spectral is trying to do here. So, congrats to them on this raise. I should note that I participated in their seed round here as an angel investor a while ago. But yeah, I guess I just came across this today and I was like, oh, congrats to them on this new $23 million raise. This is obviously going to give them a bunch of runway, which is very cool. And they'll be able to continue building out what they're building with Spectral. So if you want to learn more about Spectral, you can go visit their Twitter and website. And it's live at app.spectral.finance as well. And you can check your score and all that good stuff there. I'm not going to check it now on my end. But yeah, I'll link this in the YouTube description for you to go check out. All right, so we've got a fresh new dashboard from Hildobby today. So if you want to dive deeper into Uniswap V1, V2, or V3, or SushiSwap DEX pool data, you can check out the dashboard where you'll find historical data for volume, fees, TVL, yield, impermanent loss, APY, and more. So I'll obviously link this dashboard in the YouTube description below for you, but this is just more stats that you can check out about Uniswap and SushiSwap, which I thought was very cool. I love Hildobby's dashboards. I've shouted him out a bunch of times on the refuel before. He makes some of the best Dune Analytics dashboards that I've seen. I follow the ones that he makes religiously. I love following along with them. The staking ETH ones, the layer 2 ones, all that good stuff there. So I just wanted to give him another shout out that you should go check this out if you're interested in DEX analytics for both Uniswap and all versions of Uniswap and SushiSwap. All right, last up here, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Bankless Brasil. Now, the thing is that this Bankless Brasil publication doesn't just do Bankless translations, they also translate the Daily Gwei newsletter. So they translate it to Portuguese. You can see here all the Bankless and the Defiant newsletters, but also if you scroll down a bit, you'll be able to find Daily Gwei newsletters. So you can see here that they've been translated into Portuguese. Now, not every newsletter is translated, I believe, but a lot of them are. So I wanted to give a shout out to them as a big thank you for doing this, but also it is their 1-year anniversary. So I guess happy birthday, happy anniversary to Bankless Brasil. I really love these initiatives because, obviously crypto is dominated by English speaking people, but there are so many cultures, so many countries, so many different languages spoken within crypto that we shouldn't limit ourselves to English. And we need people to step up who can speak English and write in English and translate that to Portuguese or any other language out there. There's also kind of a Spanish translation of the Daily Gwei as well. And I believe there are a few others floating around too. But not just that Daily Gwei, but any content should be translated. And I know the Ethereum.org website does a really good job here as well, because as I said, there's a lot of English-speaking people, but that doesn't mean that everyone is English-speaking. And I think we kind of optimize for English-speaking people because of the English-speaking dominance. Whereas we should be optimizing for as many languages as possible, especially the popular ones, so that we can bring Ethereum to the world and not just virtue signal about bringing Ethereum to the world. But yeah, I guess happy anniversary, happy birthday to Bankless Brasil here. Keep up the amazing work. I think it's a very good service. Definitely bringing more people from Brazil and more Portuguese speakers into the ecosystem. So thank you for that. But I think on that note, that is going to be it for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.